I wouldn't all rush to go, because you're going to learn some home truths about mobile gaming now, and about development and how we make our games work in the market. I've been around the market, I've been in the industry now for 25 years. I started with Nintendo and I went to Sony Computer Entertainment. I was a VP of Strategic Planning for Europe, so that included obviously Scandinavia. And more recently, for the last 14 years, I've had my own consultancy, and I provide a number of clients, and these are some of my clients. A lot of the big companies, the public companies, but I provide them with strategic advice. I provide them with due diligence for those who are investing in the industry. I know a lot of investors, VC side, but also high net worths, project finance companies who can help developers build games. And I work for the investors, but also work for the small businesses to raise capital. So I've raised business and personally invested in companies here and helped with due diligence in the UK as well. So what I'm going to talk today is called IndieAppocalypse. It's really about learning some home truths, really about development in mobile and how we can get over those. But it's quite serious. We look at gaming as an easy sort of hobby sometimes, and unfortunately, developing games is a business. So we're going to kick off with some good news, first of all. And these are numbers that we're all aware of. It's a growing market. This is the global size of the market, potentially up to 100 billion if you listen to a number of people. I try to keep on the conservative side on a global basis. And that green part is the digital media and digital video games on mobile devices, on PC, MMOGs, MMOs. And there's some of the brands there that we're all familiar with. And then the red is really Steam primarily. It's download and console download of the blue. And the blue is traditional boxed console and PC games. So if you see the peak there in 2008 was obviously the Wii, and then in there, and ever since it's been in decline. But the red part of it is growing as people move from buying boxes to downloading them. So that's good news. The digital green part I showed you there is primarily driven by mobile gaming. And mobile gaming is set to grow to about 40 billion on a worldwide basis. Easily the fastest growing section, and mobile is driven by free-to-play. Over 85% of revenues are coming out of free games, okay? And then below that we have multiple online games, such as, we've got examples of World of Warcraft, League of Legends, World of Tanks. And then social and mobile, social and casual there, Facebook games, Big Fish games on the casual side, right? So this is all great news. And then even more good news is that we have smartphone addressable market, and red there is growing. There are obviously going to be more and more smartphones adopted as the population grows. People move to different kind of contracts for mobile phones. So it's a growing addressable market. There are more people to sell games to. And then games revenues, as I showed you before, is set to grow there on a global basis. So all very good stuff. However, this is the bad news. Unfortunately, mobile games 5 years ago was very exciting. We called it the democratization of the developer. Finally, the developer could come up with a game and talk directly to the platform holder, such as iOS or Android. And that was all good stuff. However, we've now got 600,000 game apps, which is about 24% of all apps on mobile, such as on iOS. So the problem is trying to find them. So you know Where's Wally? Have you heard of Where's Wally? So it's trying to find that your game amongst all those people there on the beach. Where is Wally? Where is my game? And this is the biggest problem. And if we look at year on year on year, there's the same top sellers every year. So you might get more people buying games and more people coming into the market playing games, but they're still playing the same games. There might be differences regionally, but overall, all those new people we saw the addressable market growing are still buying the same games year on year. And those top 10, of which we have some Finnish developers, they account for about 43% of all mobile games revenues on a global basis. So you've really got a very tight problem trying to get your game heard. So games development for me is about business and economics, as well as creativity, design, and positioning. We all want to make interesting games, but unfortunately, we need to make sure we're running a business. And supply outstrips demand. There are obviously more people out there, but however, there are many more games out there, and so therefore people will only buy the games they really want to play. And most games actually don't get any exposure or go viral. You launch it, you can launch it because you can dialogue directly with the platform holder like Apple or Google, but you won't necessarily be able to get any more promotion than that. You can't necessarily get featured. You have no other form of promoting your game just by sticking it up there. And unfortunately, most studios have no business strategy. They have no business model vision. They don't even have a great pitch to finance, because fundamentally you're a creative and you create the interesting game that you love, but that's really what you're mainly interested in. You're not therefore wanting to be ambitious with understanding business or in terms of putting together a really good deck to raise capital, which is tough. And also it takes up time. It's a real distraction talking to investors. And also, it's difficult for a developer to negotiate the publishing route. You don't just ring up Apple and say, listen, guys, I've got this great game. Can you please place it up in a couple of weeks' time? You need to have a publishing route. You need to understand that route to market and sales and marketing. And also, it costs money. Marketing costs money. And you've gone to the days where, oh, I can stick a few tweets out, put it on Facebook. Virality, I mean, it all helps. Unfortunately, you can't build a total platform for a game purely on hoping on virality. So you need to buy some marketing assets, and you need to have some trailers, and you need to get into PR, you need to get the game featured at launch, you need to get the game reviewed, and you need to get word of mouth being driven around the industry. And unfortunately, most development studios close down after the first game because they've got no cash flow. If the first game can't support the business in terms of driving cash flow, then the business closes down. You know, we see it all the time. We see 2 guys, 3 guys, maybe a bigger team. They've managed to raise some money, their own money perhaps. They've got maybe some local funding, and the game is okay, but it's not great. It's not driving enough revenues or profit to be able to sustain the team for the next development. So a lot of them have to just close down. So back to marketing. Now, the red line is digital. Basically, around about 2000, marketing was 0. And then it grew with the advent of social media into word of mouth. So still, there wasn't very much being spent. And so as a percentage of the share of revenues, and this is how a lot of people will forecast the amount of marketing they're going to spend. They'll look at the forecast of the revenues they're going to make on the game, and they will take a percentage. Now, really, you've got to be realistic here, that it's going to cost you at least 10% of your future revenues to be able to market the game. And I know it's difficult because you think, wow, 10%, that's a lot. You know, I've got this £100,000 development, €100,000 development budget, and I've got to spend another 10,000 on marketing. Well, I don't have that money, and if the game slips, I'm going to divert that marketing budget back into the development budget. So where am I going to get this money for marketing? However, you need to, because everybody else is spending money on marketing. And just a few examples here of some of the big publishers. They're spending up to 20% of their revenues on marketing. Now, I know some of that will be on what we call above-the-line marketing, like TV and radio and billboards and posters. However, that growth, there's no doubt that the spend of marketing has been growing over the last few years. So we need to be aware of that. So if you had €75,000 to play with in your marketing budget, which is a kind of the least amount you need to really have to get your game going. I mean, you know, you hear about lucky stories. You hear about games maybe on Steam like Firewatch, and they did very little. They had a great promotional video up front a year before launch, which was promoted through IGN, had about 150, 170,000 views. And then they put out some word about the actual launch date, but they didn't actually do any more marketing than that. But the euphoria behind the game, the expectation was enough to drive it. But that is exceptional It's not something that you can say, hey, but look at Firewatch, you know. That's what we can do. That we can just keep building. It's not going to be enough to rely on. So you have to think about maybe a €75,000 budget. So you're going to have to website for that. Obviously, you need to have a website. You need to have updating with news, blogs, FAQs, somewhere to go to, a home to go to for your game. Usually 2 trailers, a preview trailer. Right, you're going to announce the game. You preview it. It goes out there amongst the media. And through the PR you're going to have, hopefully. And then a launch trailer. So it'll be more sophisticated, it'll be more of the gameplay in it, more of a reveal. You're going to have PR, which is basically placing those 2 trailers and getting somebody to write up your game amongst all the primary big online publishers across. I'm talking on a global basis. You can focus on key markets. You've got to understand who those key markets are. It's not easy enough just to say Europe and USA. There's a lot of activity, as we know, in the Far East and in South America. And obviously social media, because that's the sort of safety net, really, for all your activities. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Vines, blogs, and vlogs. And there's a company called FameBit. Does anybody know FameBit? No? Okay, well, it's a company you should get to know, because it's quite a cheap way to get exposure on vlogs and blogs. So you've got, the way it works is that you pay quite a cheap amount. It could be anything from $50 to $500, depending on the number of views the user can more or less get on an average view for a game that they're reviewing. And also it gets you access to smaller territories and markets you might not have access to. So there might be, for example, in Russia or in Brazil, a vlogger that's getting like 200,000 views on average for each vlog about their games that they play. And you would pay for somebody like that maybe about $250 to $500, which isn't a lot of money, yeah? And the way it works is you put your game up, you invite people to vlog. And vloggers like that. It's like an aggregator of vloggers, if you like. And then you're either going to have other costs too, like localizing the game or localizing the marketing. So the trailer might have to be subtitled, it might have to be localized, yeah? Because some territories need to have localization. And then you really need somebody to brief those agencies, which could be an extra cost. It could be you, it could be somebody you bring in. Or you do it really, but you need to have somebody who is controlling that marketing, has a plan going through to launch. And it all sounds so structured and corporate, but unfortunately, as I said, this isn't a hobby anymore. We're running a business, Now, you could also buy viewers through CPI. This is CPLU, cost per loyal users. This is an index that Fixu publish. And you can see that actually it's been pretty static. It tends to go down in the spring. So we're looking at $2.5 to $3 cost per accessing each user. Okay, so it's quite a lot. You've got to spend $3 for every person you want to play your game. But it's looking around about that average at the moment. It's about $3 to get a loyal user. And this is pretty flat, actually. People talk about the inflation of marketing, but I'd say that, with the advent of type of bidding engines and a little bit more split-second type marketing through into games is keeping the costs at quite an efficient rate. And these are some of the major advertising platforms and networks which you should be all familiar with. These are companies that you would use, therefore, to create that CPI drive if you have that level of marketing spend. They're companies that will provide a lot of stats as well. But they will give you access to larger corporates outside the games industry as well, so maybe some FMCG type businesses who will be advertising, you can piggyback on and use. So the conclusions to all this, I said it's a bit brutal, I know, but you're more likely to fail than succeed, unfortunately, as a mobile developer. You don't need to sell millions to achieve your business plan. If my business plan suits me for my business, I have 5 guys to support, and I have to sell 150,000 units, and that will provide me with revenues and profit enough to keep my guys going over the next 2 or 3 years while I start to develop other titles. That's fine. That's your business model, right? So you don't have to go look out there, we've got to achieve millions and millions. You've got to have something that sustains your business. Only you know your business. Obviously, you're going to need an experienced team with a really interesting idea. Unfortunately, finance, raising capital, is based primarily on the people. You invest in the people with track record, people who've been around some time that you can trust to build the next great game, yeah? Very difficult as a young two guys in a garage type to get any money, except for maybe some high net worths who like your game, you capture their attention, and there'll be some money there. You can talk to local support, local government support, which would help out. But really, if you're going to get some serious money, you've got to have had some experience in developing games. And you're going to need a marketing budget and somebody to deliver it, as I've just said. Marketing is vital now. And games is not a hobby, okay? It's not a hobby anymore. It's not something that you can do just sort of like on the side. You've got to be treating it as a business. And quite honestly, if you don't take this seriously, you are the walking dead. This is a business now, yeah? And we have to think like bigger businesses. We have to think more like traditional agents regarding our marketing and our exposure. So yes, I'm sorry to be so bleak, but that is unfortunately the facts of life at the moment. And so that's me done. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Are there any questions? Oh, we've got one question, Nick.
Sorry, yeah. It's just...
Don't run away yet.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the talk. Good talk, thank you. You had a slide where you had 75,000 euros and seemed to concentrate a lot of it on PR and websites and press, etc. And honestly, in our experience, like you might get a few hundred users out of that, but you don't get large volumes. Also with the influencers as well, I think it can work if you do, prolonged campaigns over a long time, but it's not the immediate success stories we hear. And at least I personally, from my view, advise better just putting that into UA and doing paid marketing with that, rather than, just do one trailer and try that, rather than spread that out across a lot of traditional digital media sources.
Yeah.
Like, I was wondering, is that something you'd strictly disagree with, or do you think...
No, not at all. I think that as long as you're prepared to have the budget in the first place, you're halfway there. How you spend it, it's on a case-by-case basis, and what suits you, yeah? It could be that, and I say this, the amount of 75,000 isn't 75,000 on the first day or just on launch time. We're talking about leading up to launch, we're talking about post-launch activity. And that company I was mentioning, FameBit, is primarily post-launch. So that, 6 months later, right, I'm going to buy $1,000 of FameBit. But I think, CPI and acquiring users is a good way to go. And I think that, as I said, there are a number of different agencies and networks there which will do it for you. So I don't really have any real opinion as to, yes, you should definitely do that or do something else. I think that what works for some people, it depends on the type of game as well. I mean, sometimes CPI is not great for something that's narrative-driven. You need to have something which is kind of, if it's something more abstract, you need to have you need to be able to see the game, and you need to be able to get some appreciation of what the game is about. So, like a slow burn over that year is quite good, rather than just buying. And the CPI works as well on the back of a PR campaign, because people already heard about the game. Then one can lead to the other, so you can combine the two.
Any other questions? Oh, we've got one more. I think we can take one more and then we'll go on.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
So I'd like to say that, of course, the game development is not viable as if you're a hobbyist, you shouldn't go into business. But we know that there will be, hobbyist game makers, thousands of them making games. But how do you think that, or how would you say that they should try to separate ourselves from those people? For example, if you go to the App Store, you don't know what game has been made by a hobbyist or a professional developer, other than taking a look at it.
Well, I mean, ideally, it's the game, isn't it? A better game, that differentiates everybody from everybody else. So ideally, if you've got it to that point where it's in the marketplace, then I don't think necessarily the consumer, the gamer, is going to actually look at it and go, well, I prefer that one to that one, because this is just two guys in a garage, but this is Supercell, I think that, and obviously anywhere in between. So I think that you've got to appreciate that it's all about the game. I don't think necessarily, would you want that? Would you want to have a hobbyist, more of a hobbyist element compared to those who are more corporate? Do you able to see the difference? Do you think that would help in any way?
What I mean is that should there be a clear division, for example, that Steam would be for professional game developers and itch.io is for strictly hobbyists or something like that?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think every platform should be. It's still democratic in that way, in that anybody can go to that platform. My point of being not so democratic is the fact that you need to be able to promote the game in a way that is more mature these days.